What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Chat It Up podcast. As always, I'm your host, Shooter, bringing you interviews, news, and reviews about all things Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I have another great episode for you guys this week, and we're going to just jump right into things here. And as always, we're going to start off with This Day in Yooper History, which is brought to you by the good folks at Pasty.com. That's Pasty.com, and the Pasty Central Facebook page. So here is July 2nd, This Day in Yooper History.
Pasty Central Day in History, July 2nd. On this day in 1679, after the long voyage across Lake Superior, European explorers had their first glimpse of the headwaters of the Mississippi near Grand Rapids, Minnesota. The French expedition was led by 40-year-old Daniel Greysolon Sieur de Luth, after whom the city of Duluth is named. Also on this day in 1863, the loss of men in Michigan's Iron Brigade continued in the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg. Finally, on this day in 1937, a lady who had set speed records in the skies over Michigan had her final contact as Amelia Earhart and navigator Fred Noonan disappeared while attempting the first equatorial round-the-world flight. Pasty Central Day in History, July 2nd.
And another huge thank you to the folks over at Pasty.com and the Pasty Central Facebook page for making that segment possible. It's time for this week's interview, and it is with Mr. Jacob Rosenberg. Jake is from the Iron Mountain Kingsford area, and right around the same age as me, so we grew up together. And he's now a graphic designer down near Detroit, and he's definitely up to some pretty cool stuff. I do apologize to everybody. We did have a little bit of technical difficulty along the way, so I'm sorry about the audio quality for this interview, but still an awesome interview nonetheless. And so let's just jump right into things here. So without further ado, let's chat it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am here with Mr. Jake Rosenberg. Jake, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, dude. So, you grew up in the Iron Mountain Kingsford area right around the same time that I did. When you think back on growing up around here, what are some big memories that stick out to you?
Well, I grew up like a year under you, right?
Yep. Yeah.
You're like, yep. Okay. So you were like, yeah. Okay. So what really stuck out to me is usually like the summers. Mm-hmm. Like there was a lot of downtime to do things and stuff like that. Working at Shopco when Shopco was still around.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think Brandon Urkla worked at Shopco together. He worked in the electronics center for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I came on, and then he left. What else? Pretty much the summer. Summer was like the only time you'd be able to go outside and actually do things, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like the same, like, besides, like, playing sports and stuff, when I think back, I just think a lot of stuff in the summer because your time is limited, so it felt like you just kind of crammed everything into those couple of months.
Yep. A lot of sleepovers. I used to live outside. I used to live in, like, the Dickinson County area, really. Like, I didn't live in Kingsford and Iron Mountain.
Sure.
So I would usually sleep over at a buddy's house and just, like, screw around for the weekend, really.
Well, so now you're a graphic designer and an artist. Growing up, was that something that you were always kind of like interested in, or is that something that you just kind of like figured out later on in life?
I usually took art like classes, usually just to screw around every once in a while. Like I took them a little bit seriously because I was sort of interested in doing things like that, but I was never like, yes, this is going to be my job. Like before going to Northern, I like sort of I went to the tech center a lot, which is a center in like Iron Mountain, Kingsford, where it was pretty like taught you a lot of trades, which is really awesome. They like taught auto body there and like mechanics. What else did they teach there? They touched I think finance, like some kind of finance. There was like a store there that you could like buy like
I think they had a lot of different like technical stuff. Like I think the whole
Yeah.
that whole building was all just like building trades and different
Yep.
type of stuff like
And
that.
then one of the classes there was welding, and I was planning on becoming a welder when I grew up. Like I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do this as a job. It's gonna be fine. Like they make lots of money, like whatever. And then I got into I also took this printmaking class with one of my friends. One of my friends was like, yeah, you should probably just take this. Like it's really easy. Like you won't have to put in the hard work or anything like that. It's just like a floating class almost. And I was like, okay, cool. And I took it, and I was like, dude, like this is what I want to sort of do. I'm really, but I don't really know what to do. I was sort of like, I guess I didn't really know what it was that I want to do, but I sort of knew. So yeah.
Okay. So like, okay, you mentioned that you ended up heading up to like Northern. So when you headed to Northern, then did you have a plan like as you were heading
No,
up
I did not have a plan. I did not have a plan at all. The first year I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do all my electives and figure it out later. Yeah, because the like 4 or 5 weeks before like even college started, I was like, oh yeah, I should probably look into this. This might be a thing that I might be interested in because when I was doing my welding, I got a job at like Loadmaster for a couple, I think like a month or so, and then they let me go, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not going to do this anymore. I should probably figure something out, and that's how I sort of got into Northern.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the only that was really the only school I even like considered to. I was like 3 weeks in, MTU already like closed for like putting in your application, and I was like,
Yes.
oh, well, I guess I have Northern. It's there. Let's do it. It's only an hour and a half from home. I can still see my mom.
There you go.
If I go there, because you can still see me every other weekend or something like that.
Yeah. So
Yep.
okay, so you end up, obviously you finally kind of like, I guess, decided a path and you went into Northern's like arts program. Um, can you talk a little bit about that experience or maybe like some of the highlights of going through that program? Like, how was it for you?
I think it was very well because they have amazing technology there. Like they had like a huge computer lab that like only like a portion of the students used. They had a whole photo, like a whole photo, like class that was just like 30 or 40 like of these like machines that you can like forgot what it's called, like photography, where you like put it in the mixture and you like do all the stuff to it or
Like
whatever.
dark rooms and stuff.
Yeah, dark rooms. They had a whole classroom. There was like 40 machines to do your dark room stuff in there. Like it was a very nice facility to use. And there was never a time where I was like, oh man, I wish I could have this, but the facilities doesn't have it.
Sure.
Like they had like letterpress, they had a 3D printer, they had 3D Excite, they had Rhino and MCAD and stuff like that to use to make stuff with, and it was just like a fantastic. It was pretty much a tool for kids and how it should be. And then like the education side, that was great too because the teachers sort of like made us not made us, but they you could tell which kids were. I'm going to say that there was like a group of kids that you sort of knew wanted to be in here, and then there was another group of kids that were here to snowboard. And then Mike Forrester was in the middle, and you're like, oh, that kid, yeah, I know that kid. But there was like 10 or 15 of us that were like really, really passionate about design, and we started our grown group. And when our professor was like, yes, this is amazing, do it, like that is when I felt like, all right, like an accepted, like sort of, this is where I sort of want to be. Like this is definitely the job I want to have and the career that I want to go with.
That's interesting because, I mean, obviously there's a lot of different kind of like routes you could take within that program, probably, I would
Yeah,
guess.
there's like the art department has like at least 30 different programs that you can take easily. And like some of them are far off from each other and some of them are not, but like you would be able to sort of like get 2 years of electronic imaging, which is like photo retouching and photo collaging and things like that, like making sort of like art pieces, sort of not really like graphic design. Graphic design's for like, this is like client based, and electronic imaging is more art focused. So there's like two routes there, but they're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know I know an individual that went there, and he went through electronic imaging the entire time, and then started his own company for websites. Like, and that's like a whole design world. Like,
Sure.
yep. So
So I guess what, besides just kind of like that urging from your professor, what really is it about like graphic design that kind of like you gravitate towards?
I'm gonna say like making things. I love making things. Like it doesn't matter if I'm making them for myself or for a client or for my sister who needs a logo or anything like that. Like it's always been like making things. I've
Okay.
always like in welding class, I used to make these dinosaur statues out of like the welding beads. Like I would like just like use my MIG. That's one of the machines, a MIG machine, and like the wire would come out this far, and I would like weld it off, and then I'd keep on doing that and make these like swamp monsters. So creativity has sort of always been with me. It's just nothing that's it. When I was little, it wasn't where I wanted to be yet, I guess.
Sure. That makes sense. No, that makes sense. That
Yeah.
you've always liked to create and be creative, but getting to Northern and getting into the art program, you really kind of were able to like truly like create on
Yeah.
a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
So you ended up graduating in 2009, right?
Yeah. That was
Okay.
yeah.
So I guess where did life take you then after graduation?
Well, after graduation, I stayed in Marquette for a couple months, and I put out feelers to get a job, but I never got anything. And then I went to Greece for 2 weeks for a vacation, and that was like the end of 2000. Like that was like in the fall. That was like August, September, and I came home and I started putting out more sort of like resumes and stuff like that, and like nothing. It was like 2009.
Yeah.
Like no one was hiring anybody. And then I was like, okay, well, I can't just sit here. I'm just going to start creating my own work. And we left Marquette, and me and my wife moved back to her child home for a little bit. And then an internship in the springtime after that for Auto Week. And that sort of set me like, all right, it wasn't me. It was sort of the market. Don't quit on what you want to do. You just have to do it a little harder. So I started creating some of my own work, just doing like fluff stuff, just to like put it in my portfolio. Sort of like not really like school work, but it was like intermittent work. And then I got a job I stayed at Auto Week for a couple months, had an internship. They ended the internship because it was still like the economy was still really bad in 2010. Like everybody thought it was going to surge, and then like it didn't.
Yeah,
Like
I remember.
yeah, everybody remembers. And then I went to New York for a couple weeks and found a job, and then slept on my brother's floor for my brother and my sister's floor, because they were in the same apartment for a couple years. And I slept on his floor for 3 months until I had enough cash to move to Queens. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It froze up for a sec. So okay, so you moved out to Queens. So
Yeah, Queens, New York,
yeah.
Astoria.
So what was that experience like? Like you're coming basically like from the UP, now you're in like the Big Apple.
Oh my God. My wife was like, I would never live in New York City. And then we moved there and she's like, I'm really glad we did this for a few years. I'm like, yeah, it could be. I mean, we visited there before, so we weren't we weren't new to it.
Right.
We knew sort of how to get around, what to do, things to see. But even then, I was still like ripped off for like pretzels at a polling cart. I had to spend like $22 in pretzels, and then $22 in pretzels. Let me go talk to this guy. So
That's crazy. So what was the company you were working for then? Was it Greentech Media?
yeah, I worked for Greentech Media for a couple years. I think around 4 years. And I'm just gonna say, like, if you have an option to go in-house at a company or as with an agency, I feel like in-house would give you like the most experience to be working for graphic design right now. Like it gives you a lot of opportunities to work on your own work while working on actual work.
Okay, so is that like as opposed to being like freelance essentially?
Yeah, I think so. Because it gives you benefits,
Right.
which is everybody figured out. Everybody needs benefit. You can't live on freelance right now because there is none. And it also gives you a steady income.
Sure.
Being in-house usually gives you the most steadiness of really any job position in the field of graphic design. So
What type of stuff were you working on for them?
I was working on like 400-page documents about solar panels and grid operations and doing like infographics. Barack Obama retweeted one of our infographics that I designed, and I was like, dude, we made it. So
That's sick.
yeah, exactly. Like that was the sort of stuff that I was doing, and like just whenever I wasn't doing that, I was sort of working on my own stuff.
So, we've been talking for a few minutes here and we've been talking about, graphic design and in-house and freelance and kind of throwing some jargon out there. And I feel like probably a lot of people listening to this just think graphic design is just like logos and such.
Oh no.
But obviously so much more goes into it than that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about like some of the things that about being a graphic designer that people would like never realize go into it?
Well, I have a graphic design wish list, which is sort of like the things that I want to do as a graphic designer in certain areas and certain fields, which is very many and very different. Like first, yeah, a logo is probably the highest like epitome of doing graphic design. I did there's gig posters, which like encompasses like graphic designers to typographers to artists, like underground artists, which is really cool. So there's like a wide variety and a wide range of what you can do and things you can make. There's like web design, which is like design on the like for websites. There's like UI and UX, which is like making apps and like the hierarchy of apps and the things on the web. There's packaging design, which are like CDs, your Fruity Pebbles, Lucky Charms. I'm just listing out cereal. I love cereal, by the way. Like this beer logo, this beer can all day, that was by a graphic designer. Like the art might have been from an artist, but someone had to like figure out how to put the like the type on there, and that was it. Like how do you find like a spot where you're going to put foundersbrewing.com right there? A graphic designer did that. Like
right.
Yeah.
So basically the long story short is there's a lot of different things that
also hold on, I just noticed this. Your shirt is graphically designed by me. I
Yes.
designed that. Yeah.
Shout out to Erks.
Shout out to Erks. Yeah, if you're like, I love, like, if you're my friend and like, I thought a guy's name. His name is Aaron Draplin, and this has happened be after I actually thought of it like I thought of it, but like he had a really good quote where if you have a friend and he's in need of something, don't if he comes and asks about something, don't like push him away. Don't think that he has to pay you or anything. Just do it. Like
Sure.
it's something that you love, then he's gonna like pay you anyways. And that's what
Yeah.
like whenever Brandon has like something that he needs designed or something like that, or he has like that T-shirt or his logo for his like sort of hockey camp
Or the
or like
podcast. His podcast, the
his
Agonizing.
podcast, yeah, agonizing audio,
Yep. Yep.
or yeah, yeah, don't hesitate and say no because you don't think they're gonna get paid. They're gonna pay you either way, either in friendship or in money. Like
For
I've
sure.
never
For
gotten
sure.
not paid by a friend.
Yeah,
Someone has always
absolutely.
paid me. So
So how did the whole transition happen then, like coming back from Brooklyn back to Michigan? I know that was around like 2015, but can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, my wife, there were two offices. There was one in Brooklyn and then there was one in Detroit. And we were like, all right, we're just going. We don't want to stay here. We're not saving any money in New York City. Like this was a great opportunity. This got me in the door to my profession. My wife has a very solid career, and she's like, all right, you know what? I can easily move to do this. Now let's just do it. And that's sort of how we got here. Like my wife has family here. Uh, it was sort of after our wedding, and we sort of like wanted to come back anyways. So it was just a good idea.
Sure. So can you talk a little bit about the company that you work for now?
Yeah, it's Commonwealth McCann. They are the agency of record for Chevrolet. They're an ad agency, so it's not really a design agency, even though they have like a design. They have a design department,
Sure.
which is me and I think 6 or 7 other people, which is a pretty good design department within a ad agency. Like usually, I think they have like 4 or 5 guys, but we are growing very fast. So yeah, I came back here in 2015 around March. I got my job or a full-time job in June or January. So it didn't take very much time in 2015 to get a job.
Sure.
Unlike the other time, I was shaking in my boots when my wife was like, "Do you want to do you want to leave your job and move to Detroit?" And I was like, "I got this job 4 years ago. I don't want to leave and think that I'm never going to get a job again."
Right.
But it was actually really quick how I got the job. Like I applied. I had one interview, and then I was hired for a freelance gig for 3 months, and then not even a month into it, they asked me if I wanted to be hired full time. And I was like, heck yeah.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
um, yeah,
Yep.
just
It
a
seems like
lot
it's
of hard work.
a pretty cool place to work though. I saw you're
Yeah.
like a ping pong champ there or something.
Yep. I am a ping pong champion of Commonwealth McCann. I already told my arch rival at the company who plays ping pong with me that I was going to retire. So that is on record. I am retiring. So,
Oh, that's great. That's great. Um, so I know well, so you move from the UP, you're out in Brooklyn, and now you're like, basically like Metro Detroit.
yep.
Um, do you like being in the city more than being up in the UP, or do you like really miss kind of that UP lifestyle?
I'm gonna say right now in 2020, this is a very UP lifestyle.
Yeah, I guess.
Staying
Yeah,
at
social
home.
distancing. Yeah.
Yeah. The social distancing is UP life. You only
Thriving,
see everybody.
thriving, baby.
Yeah. You see your like best friend every 3 weeks, and you're only like, oh hey, what's going on, man? We saw you at Shopco.
Bump into you at the Kmart.
Yeah. Bumped into you at the Kmart, and I was at Dumb's over there, and I just came over to say hey. I haven't seen you in a while.
Okay, so but besides like Corona life, do you
Yeah,
feel like you kind of miss it up here?
I do, and that's why I visit at least. I try to visit twice a year. I usually go in the beginning of spring or the beginning of the summer and of spring, and then usually in November. No, not November. Like usually October.
Sure.
I usually the last time I went was not last October. Maybe it was no, it wasn't last October. It was last spring. I think it was the 4th of July. Maybe
Okay. I was
me,
gonna
my
say,
daughter, and my wife all went up, and we went to the 4th of July. That was pretty cool.
okay, I was gonna say because I know you get up here when we mentioned Mike Forrester earlier. So for those of you listening in that aren't like heavy listeners of the podcast, Mike is a guest of the podcast, and Mike has his Culture of Cult series. And Mike's located. He works for Northern and is up in Marquette. So it's kind of funny that you mentioned earlier about like helping out friends. So I gather from your statement you made earlier, like when you were going through the program, you got to know Mike then.
Oh yeah, his nickname was Hype Man, Mike. He was always hyping things up, like
Okay.
either skateboarding videos and Jamrich Hall or like rail sessions at what's the Marquette Mountain?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was always hyping, and you're like, oh man, this guy's way too much. But like he's simmered down in the years, which is awesome.
He's married.
I've
He's got a kid.
yeah, he's living the same life I am, but like totally opposite. He lives in Marquette, and I live in Detroit now.
Right.
Where it used to be the opposite. I used to live in the UP as a child, and he used to live down here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So did he approach you to like be a part of the Culture of Cult, or is it something that you just like submitted a piece for?
yeah, I was like I saw he did like 2 previous before I actually entered. I did one for a music theme. I forgot what it was called. Sorry, Mike. But like I was like, hey, can I be part of this? And he's like, yeah, man, sure, go ahead. And then I created like a $500 piece of neon for the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
I just like went full send for Mike Forrester's Culture of Cult, and it didn't sell. My old professor, I think Derek Christensen, was like, I'll buy it from you. I'm like, no, I'm not selling this. This is going in my bar when I get one.
Yeah. Sure.
It's really funny because it says get ill, and then underneath it just says XXX, and it's like all red and white neon.
Yeah, that's
So,
legit. That's legit. What
and that
was
was
it?
the
Kind of,
first.
sir? What was that?
That was the first one I did, and I was like, all right, this is pretty fun to do. It gets me out of my comfort zone of doing client work or in-house work, and I can sort of like do it myself and not worry about what other people think. So
Sure.
it's always nice to have those kinds of projects.
Yeah. Was it a little bit kind of like surreal to like come back and almost kind of like showcase your work?
Sort of. It was very surreal. The moment I knew it was very surreal was when I went back for Fresh Coast Film Festival that
Yep.
Bugsy puts on.
Yeah. Shout out to Bugsy. We're
Yeah,
just
Bugsy's
dropping
been on here for a couple times. 2 more times than I have. I am very offended, Scott. I mean, anyways, he approached me to do the 3rd annual Fresh Coast Film Festival branding, which I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. Like, that's great. And the first time I was like really taken back was a student who was a graphic design student. He came up to me in the middle of nowhere. He like knew who I was, and he's like, "You're Jacob Rosenberg. I'm a huge fan." And I'm like, "Who are you? I don't know you." But I was like, I wasn't taken back like, "Oh my, who are you?" I was like taken back by like, you know me?" And he's like, "Yeah, my professor talks to you about you all the time." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah, okay."
Yeah, that's got to be really crazy to kind of have like
It's
that kind of moment.
that
Like,
kind of shock gets you at first. And I'm like, "Wait,
yeah,
what?" It's really funny because I've told this story to one of my work friends, and he's like, "Oh, okay, so you're UP famous?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm UP famous." He's like, and I told him I was going to be on this podcast today. He's like, "Oh, that's you're UP famous if you're on a podcast for the UP."
yeah, Jake, you are a big deal. You're a big deal.
Thanks,
um,
Scott. I appreciate that.
you definitely have like a very specific style, and I think most artists do. They all kind of have their own style, but where do you feel like you kind of draw your inspiration from for like your style?
uh, I really don't know. I really feel like sometimes I have a style, and then all of a sudden I like divert out of nowhere in a different direction. I know I do a lot of like collage art. Some of it's like more a lot of vectors. Like for Commonwealth, I am the icon guy. So I do vectors, which is like working in Illustrator and doing like little like pieces of like icon art, which are like really simple like illustrations. They're like the dumbed down version of an illustration is like icons.
Sure.
I do a lot of that. So a lot of inspiration comes from like simplicity, but then all of a sudden I go off the scales and do like some like crazy 5-color like poster with foil that's like very surreal artists kind of things. I just it depends on the idea, I guess,
Sure.
and the theme.
Sure.
It just depends on if I'm like working on a poster or if I'm working on an icon.
When you're coming up with something, is it something where you like just marathon session until you like complete it, or is it something where you might like take a break and take a breather and come back to it after a while, or
Oh
like,
man. Sometimes a lot of times it's both. Like I've had posters where I finished it in 2 hours. Like this is great, I'm done. And then I do another gig poster, and it's like 4 weeks in, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm on version 21. Like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I doing this to myself? Like, sort of thing. So,
sure.
yeah.
Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned gig poster because you had mentioned that actually a few minutes ago, talking about just the different things in graphic design. One of them being like band posters or gig posters, and
Yep.
you've done quite a bit of that. I feel like a lot of
Yep.
your stuff is centered around music. Is that something that you do like freelance, or is that like are you or I guess what's all of that about?
Well, so I'm gonna sort of go into a rant. Not
That's
really a rant, but
that's what
like
we're here for.
I'm gonna divert it a little bit. So I was sort of I was working one day, and my design director came up to me. He's like, "Hey, we have we sort of have like a not like a clique, but like 5 or 7 people who do gig posters around here for just on their own time. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Sure. Which one? What are you thinking? What bands are there?" And he's like, "Well, they're doing like a festival over at Pine Knob, and they need a Death from Above poster. Can you do that?" And I was like, "Yes, I can absolutely do that. I would love to do that. Let's do it." And that's sort of how I started into doing posters. And they're sort of like there's like 7 or 8 of us that just do them. Like, and then the venue there are like 3 venues that we work with. There's like St. Andrews Hall, which is a very big, like a very known venue in
Yep.
Detroit, but they're very small. There's the Fillmore, which is kind of bigger, and then there is the 20 Monroe Live, which is in Grand Rapids. And we just pick and choose posters that we want to do for them whenever they have concerts. They don't have concerts now, though, so.
Sure.
But I wish they did. I'd still be doing a bunch of gig posters, but.
Well, that's just super interesting to me because like gig posters is like its own like culture. Like it's a big deal. Like people that are into like gig posters, it's like a really big deal.
Oh yeah, they're like they're amazing people, but they're also a little like, oh, you're that guy? Hey, can I have a poster? I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, I can get you some posters. No big deal. But yeah.
Like more like favorite or like more notable posters that you've done?
Well, I'm gonna say my notable poster that I've done. They were gonna play at St. Andrews, and I was like, I don't know these guys. Like, I don't know Greta Van Fleet. I'm not gonna do a poster for them. And I didn't. And then my boss was like, hey, you guys, there's a line outside to St. Andrews Hall. Like, who's playing there? And I was like, oh, let me look it up. And it was Greta Van Fleet. And I was like, holy crap, they sold out like 3 nights of St. Andrews Hall, and I didn't do the poster. So the next time they came up, I was like, all right, I'm doing their poster because I know that they have fans, like fans. And I listen to their music. I'm like, man, this is like going back to like 1970s. This is like Led Zeppelin music. And I like when I do a poster, I usually like just like heads down do research about this band for like 3 weeks before I even like think about doing anything to paper. Like I listen to their music the entire time. I write down notes, usually on my phone, just like in the middle of the night. I like wake up and be like, holy crap. Also, I have a very weird story. Hold on. I have a very weird story about Pine Mountain Road. I had a dream, and it was I was going to school, but Pine Mountain Road was closed and was blocked up, and no one was allowed going on it. And there were like trees and a forest over Pine Mountain Road, and it was like secluded and everything like that. They were like, "Yeah, we don't use this road anymore. You need to turn around."
That's super random.
That's super random, but I wanted to tell you this story because I remembered it, and then you said, "Hey, do you want to come on the show?" I was like, I have to tell this story to Scott.
I feel like you need to like turn this into like a piece now. Like you've got to like do some sort of art to like
yeah.
Like, if the Pine Mountain Road is over
it's just a road that goes into forest, and that's it.
Yeah, and you can kind of see like the jump in the background.
Yep. But back to the conversation. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I did. They sold out at St. Andrews, and then the next month they were like, yeah, we're gonna be at the Fillmore, and they had 2 nights, and like in the matter of hours they sold out both their nights. So there was a third one, and they sold that out too. And I was like, I will take that poster, and I will do that poster. And I did this sort of collage with a woman coming out of sort of like a weird, like almost like a sun sort of thing. And my friend Brian Durko illustrated some flowers on it, and I put the city down below a little bit, and then I just like textured it with like a buttload of like stars and everything like that and it was like a 2-color foil. It was 3-color. One was orange and purple, and it was on like a foil, so it made it like extra like weird. And the night of the show, someone emailed me saying, hey, do you have this poster? And I was like, I don't even have them from the venue yet. Check back tomorrow. And then Mike Forrester texted me the next day saying, hey, this dude is selling your poster for $250. And I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, here. He sent me a Facebook message with the dude who was selling the poster for like $250. And I was like, are you insane? Like, why? Who's gonna buy a $250 poster? And then I looked at eBay, and someone was selling it for like $300, and it sold. And I was like, what? So that was probably my most popular poster. I still get emails asking people. The gig posters I usually make are only like one run, which
Sure.
is like I only print one set of them. Once they're gone, they're gone. I'm not gonna print them again.
Right.
Like,
But
I
you
don't.
have people that like track you down and like email you and like try like the
Yes.
like
Yeah. I still get emails for that poster. That was like 2 years ago.
wow.
Yeah. I actually got one I think the other day, and I was like, dude, I've been sold out for 2 years. And then I reached out to the manager. The manager for them reached out and said, these are awesome. Thank you for doing them. And then I reached out back to him saying, hey, can I do another poster, just to like make another poster? And it was sort of in the same vibe, but a little bit different. And then that was for like the West Coast, and those sold just like that too. It was like pretty nuts. But
That's awesome. What are some of the other bands that you've done them for that people might know?
Let's see. Hold on. Let me pull up my portfolio, Scott. Give
There
me a
you go.
minute.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, we'll take a short beer intermission.
Here, hold on. What are you drinking, by the way?
Hey, I'm in the UP, brother. I'm Bush Latte.
Ooh, Bush.
A Bush.
I got all day IPAs because I'm a little fancy, but I don't want to be too fancy. I don't want to be pinky finger up fancy.
Yeah.
Just a little.
I just love on the all day can that there's a Jeep Wagoneer, because growing up we had a Jeep Wagoneer and it was that same color and we called it the Beast.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So
my next door neighbor, when I used to live in Wells Township, which is it's like a little township by Escanaba.
Yeah.
And they have like what's it called? A school that only held one classroom, but every grade was in the class.
Yep.
And our friend would pick us, our neighbor would pick us up. I think she had a Wagoneer, and we would ride in the back. We fought for who got to ride in the back, going backwards.
Yeah.
I think that was that car, wasn't it?
Yeah. Wagoneers had the flip around seat. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So some of the bands that I've worked on were my favorite. I'm gonna just say my favorite gig poster was Godspeed You, Black Emperor, which is a post. I don't want to get it wrong, and then people call me out for it. They are a post rock, space rock, experimental rock drone. Drone is very good. If you ever want to listen to some drone music, listen to Sleep.
Okay.
Sleep is a very good band. They've broken up recently, but they will be here forever. But yeah, that's my favorite poster. Godspeed You, Black Emperor.
Okay.
And then some other ones, Angels and Airwaves. I did a poster for the 1975.
I love that.
Yeah, the 1975 is really good. It reminds me of sort of like new age pop Morrissey.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More synth. I need more synth. Another one I did was Third Eye Blind.
Okay.
Motion City Soundtrack. Humphreys McGee. I have a friend who every time Humphreys McGee like pops up to do a poster for, I will automatically do it for my friend, because he is a huge fan, and I'm like, all right, I'll just do this for him. So, and I think that's like, for me, that's like the spirit of like graphic design, is not to be sort of like, oh, I'm only going after what I want. Like, you guys challenge yourself sometimes. Like Humphrey McGee, I'm gonna be real, I have never listened to more than 10 minutes of Humphreys McGee. Yeah. But I know Humphrey McGee fans.
Yeah.
Or this individual fan to sort of know what he likes. So every time it's sort of in his vibe of what he sort of thought that Humphreys McGee is. So
yeah. We've done some pretty cool stuff with, like, in relation to Detroit sports too, I noticed. And I'm a big Tigers and Pistons fan, so I really appreciate when you do that kind of stuff too.
Nice.
How has the reception been to that kind of stuff?
I have never gotten a cease and desist yet. So, which, if anybody knows, is a cease and desist. That is someone coming after you and suing you for the likeness of another product or another brand. I usually just do it in like small quantities for my friends. Like this year, I did an opening day 2020 Tiger shirt.
Yes.
Like, there's never really more than or like 25 as a quantity. So it's usually like small runs, and I go through like an instant print sort of like print shop and stuff like that. But again, it's usually just for friends.
Okay. Gotcha.
I just like making cool shit and then being like, hey, you guys want this? And they're like, yeah, we'll buy some. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just put it up for sale for like a week. And anybody can buy one. I just really want one. I made this for myself, so I just want like one, and then if anybody else wants one, that's cool too.
Yeah, I know. I can relate to that. I feel super proud that I have one of the hoodies from Uper Shirts. It's a Detroit Tigers one, but it was before they got their cease and desist from Major League Baseball. I feel like it's like my prized possession because they had to quit making them. So
yeah, exactly. Like that's the one thing I like doing about like gig posters is they do one run and that's it. Like if you missed out, sorry, but like I'm not making more. They're done. Like that's it gives it sort of a all of a sudden this is value. Like there's value to it more than just like what's on it is all of a sudden this piece of paper is worth is pretty much almost currency.
Yeah, it's like it's truly art.
Yeah.
Kind of sticking in the sports vein as we were talking about this stuff. You also recently had a logo that ended up on the hood of a NASCAR, right?
Oh yeah, that is on. Oh, by the way, that is on my design wish list or bucket lists. I guess you should call it a bucket list, but like.
Yeah.
Making a NASCAR livery is like my dream sort of like job. Like that would be the epitome of my bucket list. That and doing Kingsford High School's logo. If I could do Kingsford High School's logo or like even Iron Mountains, just like a town, like my hometown's logo for their sports team, that would make my like entire 5 years. I wouldn't know what to do. But
so how did this whole NASCAR thing come together though? And like, photo, is it the Chevy logo on the car? I guess what part of it was your work?
Chevy Cares logo is the logo, and then underneath it is Cares. Like my boss, we came up with this logo, and we're like, yeah, just keep it simple. Just put the Chevy on top, Cares on bottom. And this program has been going around for I think 3 or 4 years. They do like MSABC, which is Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. They do Chevy Youth Sports, which all in softball and things like that. They do right now. Chevy Cares is doing like an initiative for people who can't really afford to pay like bills for COVID and stuff like that. Not like insurance bills, but like insurance or like pay your vehicle and stuff like that. So right. It's a very good initiative that they started sort of promoting and branding. Like they've had these initiatives before. Like before that, there was like Chevy Youth Sports. There was MSABC, there was like initiatives like that to help people out, but it was never really under one umbrella. And sort of like design does is like, I think design helps organize things.
Sure.
Like a lot. And using that logo to sort of make an umbrella for these sort of specific needs was really cool. Especially since it's like helping people out and making people like sport, like getting into sports or donating money to MSABC, which is me. But yeah, sort of how that went is they just threw it on a car. And I was like, dude, this is awesome.
Well, and you mentioned COVID a little bit, and I noticed that you've put out some kind of like PSA style like posters in relation to kind of COVID. How did that project come together? Just from the times we're in, or what?
Well, the first sort of posters, like the week that it happened, I was having a mental breakdown where I was like, I can't believe this is happening. What is going on? How can I like sort of figure this out and be okay with it? And that is where the first 3 posters came from, was the really like Americana themed
Yep.
posters of like stay home, stay calm, and then like all of a sudden everybody started taking toilet paper, and I was like, this is just outrageous. Like, I don't know how to feel. Like people should be, I guess, like stocking up, but they should also be rationing to a point where like only take what you need. And that was like the second poster. And then the third poster was like, make sure your friends and your family are okay, like mentally in a position where they can like actually weather COVID.
Right.
And how the first 3 posters sort of happen, like, how can I help contribute to sort of this problem? And like, I just started doing like sort of like bullets for these posters.
Sure.
Which is like, stay at home, only take what you need, and then contact your friends and your family to make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
The other WPA posters that me and other people in the Detroit Design Guild, which is sort of a collaborative sort of like 7 or 8 of us that do gig posters at sort of on our off time at work. That sort of came up when my boss was like, what is you guys' commentary of what's going on? And I was like, he's like, we should probably start doing like some sort of posters to like, even if it's WPA or PSA themed, to get like the message out there. Or even to feel like sort of, it was sort of like therapy almost, like thanking people for making masks, or not thanking people for going and protesting at the state like capitol.
Right.
Like you guys are supposed to be inside and you're just like mad that you can't get haircuts and like go to restaurants. Like, this thing's real. Like, we want you to know what side we're on. Like, this isn't cool.
Right.
And I think it's helped a lot. I think it's helped me a lot, like, digest the sort of world we live in now.
Sure.
And yeah.
Well, and I know you've made a couple posters too with like obviously the other protests that have been going on for racial injustices. Do you feel like it's I mean, it's almost therapy in a way for you to kind of just like...
Definitely. I feel like it definitely is. I feel like art is definitely a form of therapy where like just like talking is. I hate talking. I mean Scott, I hate talking. Why are we on this interview? No, I like talking, but I'm only comfortable talking to people I know, like you, or like my wife, or like other people I know. But when it becomes real, I just shut down. Like, in all facts, I shut down. Like, and the only way I can let my sort of stance be heard or present or anything like that is through me making something.
Sure. But that's powerful. That's just as powerful as standing there with a megaphone, at least in my opinion.
Yep, exactly. So it's just another release. It's another therapy that just helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if you're mad at somebody, if you're like pissed off, just make some art.
There you go.
And then you're like, hey guys, can you see what this? Can you read this and make sure that this is right? And then they're like, dude, this is way too harsh. You tone it down just a little bit. And I was like, dude, I was emotional. Yeah, I can tone it down now.
Now that I got it out of my system.
Yeah, now I got it out of my system. Yeah, let's revise a little bit.
Well, we've hit like every bullet point that I wanted to talk about. Was there anything that you feel like I missed, or anything else that you really wanted to like add to the combo?
I don't think so. I think I'm pretty good. You good, Scott? Scott, are you good?
I'm good. I feel like you answered all my questions, and like I said, we really hit on all the stuff that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just drop my final question on you that I ask everybody, and that's how do you like your pasty?
I like my pasty with ketchup, but I have a question for you. All right. So me and my friend were discussing pasties. He sent me a pasty. He was like, hey, I got a traditional pasty, and it had carrots in it.
That, I don't know how traditional that is. When
Exactly.
I think of it,
If you go to a place and you're like, yeah, I'll order your pasty, and it just says pasty there, and you get it with carrots, and you're like, wait, this has carrots in it. What the heck?
Maybe it depends on like what area of the UP, because I mean, like when I think traditional, I just think like steak, potato, and like rutabaga.
Yeah.
Is like, to me, that's like a traditional pasty.
It should be called a pasty with carrots, right?
Yeah, but again, I'm not, that's me growing up in Iron Mountain, Kingsford. If you go to like Baraga, or maybe to like the east end of the UP where all the tourists show up, maybe it's just, I don't know what's considered traditional in those other
Bugsy
places.
comes on a third time, ask him that question for me.
Okay.
Before I get here on a second time, okay?
All right. That'll be my first question if Bugsy makes a third appearance. It will be,
if Bugsy becomes ultra UP famous, I want to know if carrots are a traditional pasty like ingredient.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Maybe I'll have to put a poll or something out there and see what the temperature is.
All right, that sounds like a great idea.
All right, dude. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was really fun. It's definitely something that's out of like my normal wheelhouse, but this was cool. So
no, this is definitely out of my normal wheelhouse either. I don't talk to people. I usually don't go on podcasts that much.
Now you're officially UP famous.
Yeah,
You tell your
UP famous. I'm on a podcast about the UP.
All right. Well, thanks again, dude. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode. Another huge thank you to Jake for taking the time to sit down with me and share his story. Housekeeping per usual, I always want to hear your thoughts and your takeaways and your feedback, so don't hesitate to drop me a line. You can reach me at chatituppod@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. So don't hesitate to reach out there. Also, wherever you're listening in, if you could, please subscribe, rate, and leave me a review. I hope you all have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend. And as always, I'm your host, Shooter, reminding you to keep your chin up and your eyes forward.